We've got some Browns free agency news for the people as Marquise Goodwin is signing with the Cleveland Browns in free agency. We're going to break down this move, look over some stats, talk about what that means for the offense and some other receivers. Hint, hint, number 10. But the news comes in from Field Yates, who tweeted out the Browns are signing former Seahawks wide receiver Marquise Goodwin to a one-year deal per source. After trading for wide receiver Elijah Moore, Cleveland adds a second wide receiver this week. Now, when we look at Marquise Goodwin's stats from just the last 4 seasons, he had a bit of I don't think breakout's a nice word to use for last season, but he did have 4 touchdowns, and for a 30-plus-year-old track star wide receiver, that's not too shabby. Here's where I sort of stand on Marquise Goodwin. Couple thoughts. One, he hasn't played a whole lot of football the last 4 years, right? Opted out for COVID in 2020, no biggie. But before then, before and after then, 13 games, 14 games, that's not too bad. But 9 games before then, he's never been a very reliable guy to play a full season. My other thing on Marquise Goodwin is I'm not going to do, jumping jacks for this move because I think it's sort of a bottom of the wide receiver type of addition. What is Marquise Goodwin going to offer you? He's probably going to bring like 1 or 2 really good games, and then he'll be a 1 reception for 12 yards for 3 straight games. But you'll have those 1 to 2 weeks where he pops off for a touchdown and 85 yards as wide receiver 4 or 5 or wherever he really ends up on the depth chart, and you're like, that's what I love to see. Now, for now, here's how I have the depth chart looking. I've got Goodwin as wide receiver 4 over David Bell. I think if they like David Bell a lot, they might not have made this signing. So them adding Goodwin probably means they have decent plans for him not to be just a 53rd man on this roster. So I'm going to put him in at wide receiver 4. But how about the Browns adding 2 speed demons in the last 72 hours or whatever it's been now? Elijah Moore, one of the top 40-yard performances during his draft. And Marquise Goodwin is a flat-out track star that can just hold on to the ball a little bit better than some other track stars we might know. Now, looking at this wide receiver room, how would you grade it? Is it an A wide receiver room? Is it a B? I don't know if it's an absolute A, right? I think A belongs to categories with, like, let's be honest, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Those are both wide receiver 1s on the same roster. I think it's a B+. I think it's a B+, and it can get to an A- if they get 2 receivers over 1,000 yards this year. Right, I think that's probably a good bar to go. You got 2,000-yard plus receivers, that's an A-, A+ range receiving room. So if DPJ can get there, this wide receiver room is going to be one of the best in the NFL. I also think that signing Goodwin serves as a good insurance policy for Elijah Moore. I've spent the last 2 days really preaching how important that trade was because it added some speed to the Browns roster, specifically at the wide receiver position, that they were sorely missing. Well, Elijah Moore back in 2021, his rookie season, you'll see he only played 11 games. He's still very young in his career. So we don't have a very good track record to know, is he a guy that's an Iron Man and he's Eli Manning and he'll never miss a snap? Or is he a bit injury prone, right? If Elijah Moore were to miss, a game, 2, maybe 3, hopefully not, Marquise Goodwin could do a very good job of filling in and adding some or replacing that speed lost if something were to happen with Elijah Moore. I think the Browns here are just looking to add as much speed as possible to this wide receiver room. I do find it a bit interesting because they've added 2 receivers in the last week, and so what other moves are they going to make at that spot come draft time, right? We all sort of assume they would absolutely draft some receiver. Where's that receiver going to go? They're running out of roster spots really quickly, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. But never miss any signings whatsoever when you are subscribed. And we are so close to the next milestone here at the channel, 18,000 subscribers, 99 away. Help us reach that milestone from today's video. If you haven't subscribed yet, do yourself a favor and hit that sub button. Now, talking about the wide receiver room as a whole, like I said, are they going to draft a receiver? I don't think so anymore. Where is he going to go? You've got 5 locks to make this roster, I think, right? Amari Cooper's a lock. DPJ, Moore, Goodwin. Goodwin maybe not. I think he's a lock, dude. So if those 4 are locks, and I think David Bell is too, they're not moving on from a 3rd-round pick after just 1 season, that's 5 receivers. Most teams take max 6. So the number 6 is going to be a battle between Anthony Schwartz, Jakeem Grant, Demetric Felton, and another rookie potentially? I don't think so. I think this probably ends the time of Anthony Schwartz in Cleveland. Don't be shocked if he gets traded, if a team is willing to take him for a 2030 7th-round pick. So it will be a little interesting to see the Browns' draft strategy at wide receiver. Does this signing, for example, tell me that the Browns scouts told Andrew Berry, hey, if you want to move back from 42, we don't think there's any real contributors in round 3 out of this wide receiver room. So if you want someone who's going to score a couple touchdowns this year, you're not going to find that in this draft in rounds 3 or 4. Go to free agency, sign Goodwin to a 1-year, likely vet minimum contract. Curious to see what the guaranteed money is. If you see a good chunk of guaranteed money on this contract, that likely means he's not getting cut, right? They're not going to guarantee someone, even if it's just $900,000 or $1 million, just to cut him a few months later. Like, that's not very good, spending by a GM for the ownership's money of, yep, I gave him $1 million and then I cut him just like 2 or 3 months later. That's probably not in the cards here. So keep an eye on the guaranteed money. If it's low, then it means he's just going to be battling for a roster spot. And he's a notable name, but not all notable names when they're 32 make the 53-man roster. Goodwin, like we said, though, the last 4 seasons, he's bounced around a little bit. He was with the Seahawks most recently. You probably remember him best with being with the 49ers for a little while here. I'm going to pull up Marquise Goodwin's stats and read them out to you in terms of like the best season that he's had in his career. 2017, 962 yards and 2 touchdowns. The next year in 2018, 395 yards and 4 touchdowns. So that's before these previous 4 seasons on screen right now. So back in his heyday, he was a really good wide receiver 2, 3 kind of flex right there with the Browns. I can guarantee you he's not going to be a top 3 receiver if everyone's healthy. It's Cooper, DPJ, and more. But you know what? If the Browns want to start an offense with Kevin Stefanski that is more college-like and it is more West Coast, 4 receivers on the field, we're going 4 verts. I'm getting, Madden crazy right now. Goodwin's going to do a great job of stretching the field for you. So I think he might be a player that Anthony Schwartz was supposed to be. Sorry to make this like a partially anti-Anthony Schwartz video, but when they sign your replacement and it's basically a carbon copy of the type of player that they want you to be, and it's a 32-year-old version of it, that doesn't really send some good signs for Schwartz's time in Cleveland moving forward. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in, making us a part of your day. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the March Madness betting. I know producer Rolly and I are going to go watch some March Madness games today. But remember, they're just kids. It doesn't matter. And I don't want to think about yesterday. And you know what? It's just basketball. It's just basketball. Okay, that's it for today's show. See you guys.